Welcome to Bob Cargill's Marketing Show, a ridiculously awesome podcast bursting with insightful commentaries and intriguing conversations on the topics and issues that are on the minds of marketers, advertisers, social media, and PR professionals today.
Hey everybody, how are you? This is Bob Cargill from Bob Cargill's Marketing Show, episode 185. Yes, episode 185. I am here at WeWork in Boston. WeWork is a co-working space. It's a rainy Thursday afternoon, and I ventured into town especially to record this podcast, episode 185, at WeWork in Boston with a good friend, my fellow board member, AMA Boston board member, Emilee Cocuzzo. Yes, it's not just me here in the studio, if you will. I'm here with Emilee, and we're going to have a great conversation about marketing, social media, AMA Boston, careers, etc., etc., etc. So let me introduce you to Emilee Cocuzzo. Emilee is president-elect of AMA Boston. I think you know that's where I am president, and I have been so fortunate to have Emilee as my president-elect for the last year or so, and she'll be taking over from me as of July 1, and that time is coming, and so I've had to make the most of these last few months during my tenure. I don't know. I know I have talked in the past, but whether you're a past listener or not, I don't know that. If you are, you know that this is my second go-around as being president of AMA Boston's second 2-year term, and I have really enjoyed the experience. It's a lot of work, absolutely, but it's a labor of love. It's great being on a board. It's great having the responsibility of presiding over that board, if you will, and the opportunities I get to meet people and attend all the various events, learn from others, and connect with others. It's unbeatable. So I highly recommend AMA, American Marketing Association, to anyone if you are very, very serious, and I would imagine you all are, about marketing. Let me tell you about Emilee. She is a service delivery lead at Valere, leading AI and digital transformation work and projects. She was previously a senior consultant at Booz Allen, working on cybersecurity, enterprise data management, IT, and digital modernization, DE&I strategy, and financial management projects. She's also an adjunct professor, like me, but I don't teach where she teaches. She teaches at Clark University in Worcester, teaching about entrepreneurship. Her experience in general includes consulting, project management, corporate strategy, business operations, marketing, entrepreneurship, e-commerce, data analytics, and visualizations. Previously, Emilee worked in the consulting, startup, retail, real estate, and non-profit sectors. A little bit more about Emilee, and then I'll ask her to tell you all about herself, what you might not be hearing about in this bio, or she'll dig deeper with regard to her bio. She, as I've already told you, is president-elect of AMA Boston. She is a community owner, that's very interesting, of the Minnesota Aurora Football Club. And I don't think we're talking football. We're talking soccer, right? Yeah. And we got to hear more about that, Emilee, in just a second. She's a young professional board member for multiple nonprofits, MBA graduate with a concentration in information management and business analytics. You know, Emilee, I have known only, I think, for a few years. But the minute, I ain't just saying this, Emilee, the minute I met you, I knew you were a star, a superstar, a rock star. She's heard me say that to so many others, but I really mean it when I say it about you, Emilee. And whoever's listening, I can't say whoever's watching. Sometimes I'm on YouTube and elsewhere on video. Whoever's listening, this is Emilee Cocuzzo, rock star extraordinaire, and I'm going to ask you to introduce yourself, Emilee. Tell us about your career journey up to this point in time.
Oh, wow. Thank you, Bob. That was quite an introduction. I think you covered a good scope of it, but really appreciate the invitation to be on this podcast. Really appreciate you trekking into a rainy Boston to do this podcast recording. So thank you.
You're most welcome. Thank you.
So, as Bob said, I'm currently a service delivery lead at Valere, and that really means running our enterprise software clients in their digital transformation projects. So, anywhere from sales to business development to actually being on these projects and running really the discovery portion of it. I've worked in consulting, I teach, all of that good stuff. I'll also add something that I think most people don't know, but I also help run a Halloween mask business called Deja Boo. And so we sell...
Wait, did you say Deja Boo?
Boo, yeah.
Whoever
B-O-O.
came up with that name was brilliant.
Clever. Shout out to Mark, our CEO.
Deja Boo.
Yep.
Get it? Halloween Boo.
And that is one of my favorite things that I do on a day-to-day basis other than AMA Boston, of course. And please check out the website. It's really cool. We sell scary masks. And then I think the last thing I'll say is, I'm a young professional, I guess, technically, but still.
Compared to me, you are. You're very young compared to me.
So I have a lot to learn, Bob, especially from you.
I have a lot. I am learning constantly from you, Emilee, so it goes both ways.
Thank you. But
Yeah, so good to have you here, and or you to have me here, because this is your co-working space. And again, I'm saying I don't do a lot, or haven't lately done a lot of these podcasts out of my home office. So I'm out of my element, if you will, Emilee. But this is a great element to be in. We're in this like soundproof room and all this high tech around us, and here we are recording off of my Podbean app, which I love. It's very, and it's not, well, it is a plug for Podbean, but I'm not getting paid to make this plug. But I've been recording with Podbean for years, and I really think they have something going in terms of being a podcast host. And anyways, we're well set up in this room. Let's get back to Emilee and AMA Boston. Yeah, so folks, you're going to hear quite a bit about AMA Boston at the beginning of our conversation, because Emilee and I, me, president-elect, we are involved in AMA Boston on a day-to-day basis, and so I'm asking her a few questions that I might already know the answers to, but I want you to share with everybody who's listening. Emilee, how did you first get involved in AMA Boston? I don't think I know this. I mean, like what you were doing before I first met you, like what brought you to an AMA Boston meeting, and I don't even remember exactly how we connected. Maybe you do. Tell us about that.
Yeah, it was during the pandemic, and I just moved back from D.C., and I was looking for friends. I was looking for something to do. I have a lot of friends up here from, Clark and from growing up, but wanted to really expand my professional network. So I joined the event. It was, I think, around in December-ish of 2020, where you had the CMO of Dunkin' Donuts as a guest.
Yes.
And I
remember that.
Blown away. I was like, this is an organization I want to be a part of. If you're having guests like the CMO of Dunkin' Donuts, I think it's a pretty cool and great organization already. Met up with Meg, who was the president at the time.
Megan McGrath, yes.
Yep. And she kind of steered me to the collegiate part of AMA Boston.
Right, yes.
And that's where I got connected with Pat Cooper, who's also a past president, and it just kind of took off from there. I was a recent graduate at the time, which I think is why Meg put me in that position, but it was such a great fit because I love giving back to students, and definitely one of the big passions of mine. And it was just a natural fit to also work with Pat Cooper, who's an incredible leader as well.
Yes.
So that's why I got involved.
You're reminding me. You're underscoring why I don't remember all the details about how we first met, because it was during the pandemic, and it was during the time when I wasn't president. So we didn't meet in person. We met on Zoom.
Right.
And because I wasn't president, I wasn't heavily involved with all the details about the association. So I was president in, I think, 19, 20. Years may be a little off. Then it was Meg, and then it was Pat, and then I came back as president, and now you're going to be president. But this, again, this is good for me to hear as much as it's good for our listeners to hear, because it all makes sense. And look how far in a short period of time you've come, Emilee, and I say that all the time to people who join AMA Boston, and now you are an example, and you're going to be saying that to others, how quickly you can climb the ladder, if you will.
Right. It's the opportunities of AMA Boston has been not only an incredible experience, but to see the growth trajectory is also really awesome, to be a part of a team that really supports you to every step that you want to take in the organization.
Yeah, you're putting into perspective exactly, I thought of this with Meg, I thought of this with Pat, but again, I wasn't as active. I'm now remembering, because of the pandemic. I mean, I think that threw us all for a loop and threw our respective games a little off. When I came on as president this time around, it was right after the pandemic. My biggest concern was getting us back to in-person events, but you were collegiate then.
Yeah.
I mean, you still have been quite involved in collegiate, but since you were named president-elect, I mean, that's what you've been focusing on.
Right. I think collegiate was the perfect fit at the time, and we've done a lot with collegiate since I started. I think Pat was a great leader in the team, where he really created those connections with the colleges, because we had no really strong presence with colleges at that point.
Ironically.
Right, which is...
Because here we are in Boston. With all the schools around us.
Which is, it was weird. And so Pat did a great job on really gathering information from different colleges to bring them to our AMA events, and then crafted those relationships with students. So since then, we've had students on our podcast, our Talkin' Marketing podcast. We go up to schools and we're judges for their marketing competitions. We're guest speakers. We're panelists, and so we've just crafted some really cool relationships with colleges, with students, and that's what I enjoy most, is being able to help them.
I agree, and that's credit to Nick Keys and you, Emilee, in the every member of the board of directors as well, the chapter as a whole, and it excites me so much. I mean, there are so many schools around Boston. There's so much opportunity there, and I think we are finding that they are almost our most active members, who often quickly become volunteers and could become the future leaders. And again, you're an example, and I didn't realize you have put everything in perspective for me just in these first few minutes of this podcast, in terms of when we met, how we met, and how quickly you've evolved as a leader. But you have that in you naturally. I see that in you. Do you feel that? And whether you do or not, what do you think? This is a question I did not prepare you for, but what do you think it takes to become a leader? And what have you been learning as a leader with AMA Boston?
Oh, gosh, that's a great question, Bob. Something I didn't prepare for. But I've always been pretty ambitious. I have high standards for myself. I was pretty competitive growing up because I played sports, and luckily enough had good family backings to that. And in college I did a lot of extracurriculars, took on leadership roles and all that stuff. And I think for me, with leadership and being a good leader, it's all about understanding people, which we talk about all the time in AMA Boston. But I think in other organizations I'm part of and work, it's really learning about how people think and operate. Some people are better over text messages. Some people rather communicate through phone calls. I think of it as, I tell students, the way to be successful, and I said this a lot in consulting, is that every client's different. So some clients may want a PowerPoint, some clients may want a Word document as their deliverables. So it's just really learning how they communicate and want to achieve whatever benefits they want, right? And I think that's what being a good leader is, that you're supposed to learn how your team works and operates and cater towards that, and then bring them collectively and bring them to that greater purpose of, whether that be, again, with AMA Boston, bringing our chapter to the next level, for my students that I teach, bringing their entrepreneurial venture to the next level. And so just getting that perspective and being able to know and learn their inner workings of what they want, where they see themselves growing, and how do we get there? How do we as leaders help them to get to that point?
Yeah, you're saying some amazing amazing.
I love that phrase.
Yeah, AMA for AMA Boston for American Marketing Association, amazing things, Emilee, and that I can totally relate to in that it is a people-oriented task as a leader. And I like to say we're, as presidents, you're going to find out, but I think you've already seen, we're only as good as the people who surround us, and they make us better. Yep. And so a big key, if you're managing an organization, if you're a coach, if you're a president of AMA Boston, is to try to make sure you have the right people around you. And I know we are blessed to have the right people around us. And it's all then how you communicate. And you made a fantastic point that you try to communicate the way that makes sense for them, not necessarily for you. Right. You want to meet them where they are, where they like to be. Yeah. Hey, as I say, that literally might be in person. Some right. people might be only on Zoom, right. Text, as you say, phone. And it's a combination, especially in 2024, in terms of how we communicate. And then having empathy, I believe, is very important as a leader. So, and I think you touched on this, understanding their personalities and their tendencies and trying to bring the best out Absolutely. In them. You also made me think of something I said to you the other night, and I want to say this so that everybody's listening, say this for the record, because I said it with 3 or 4 people in the room the other night, and you're a perfect example of this that I see in you as a leadership quality, and it's a very strong quality that you didn't mention because you're probably too modest, but you get things done.
Thank you.
And I have seen you, I mean, it gets me emotional how much you've gotten done as president-elect, and I can only imagine how much you're going to get done as president. What's your secret there? Do you is that intentional? Is that just your DNA? You get things done, Emilee.
Thank you. Thanks, Bob. That's a really kind comment, and I really appreciate the compliment. I would say I'm an operator. In the startup world, they're like, are you an operator? Are you technical? There's different categories, and I always categorize myself as the operator, the builder. I would like to say I have good ideas, but I know how to execute on them, and that's because, for me, I'm really organized. I think that's just like a personality trait. But I also think it's because you don't get anything done if you just have ideas, like truly. At Booz Allen, my prior workplace, I had a mentor and close friend who said, don't be an idea fairy. So an idea fairy comes in and sprinkles ideas to the team or to the meeting and then leaves, like a little fairy just like kind of leaving the room. And she said, don't be like that, because then you're just termed as an idea fairy where you have ideas, but you can't execute on them. And so she really pushed me to have a perspective of everything that you do or suggest, you should have some type of follow through if that's something that you really truly believe in. And again, I'm big on following through.
Yes, you are.
If you tell me, hey, Emilee, we got to do X, Y, and Z to achieve, say, 100 more members by the end of this year, I'm going to do everything I can to do that and to bring that to happen. But that also comes into our conversation, Bob, is that then that's when you bring the team in. How do you mobilize them? How do you bring community into them so that we can achieve those goals?
How do you get them not to be idea fairies? So that's actually, I didn't plan that to be a follow-up question, but I would imagine that's a challenge. So I think I've been around many years, as you know, like 3 times as many years as you. That might be a little bit of an exaggeration, but not too far away from that math-wise. I think people who aren't idea fairies are few and far between. The people, in other words, who can come up with the ideas or be given an idea and actually make it happen. Mm-hmm. You are one of them. How do you get the people around you not to be idea fairies? How do you get them to execute like you want to see things executed?
So my own personal life, I give myself metrics or 2 to 3 goals per idea. So let's use AMA Boston, for example. If our goal is to have one event each month that's for marketing educational purposes and then one marketing mingle, then I give the task to our VP of programming, hey, let's get this on the book. And instead of saying, okay, every month you have to come up with a marketing mingle, why don't you book it out for the rest of the year? Why don't you take January to book it out for the rest of the year so that we have that on the calendar? And then for educational events, for example, we're big on, okay, I'm big on let's get the team to put ideas in, but then let's see where the benefit is for these ideas. So an example is our event on Tuesday we had for the AI event. We wanted to do something that was more technical, something that was really relevant, and something that was super enticing for our audience. And so bringing that together was a good goal because it ties into we need to do an event. This is an event that's relevant and beneficial to our members, and then we were able to execute on that. So I guess it's just a long-winded way to say you have an idea, you give them goals, and you follow through with the execution plan and roadmap.
Yeah, and I can corroborate that you do, in fact, have a way. I might not be able to articulate it, and you were saying it might be a long-winded way of describing it, but however you describe it, you do make it happen.
Thank you.
You make it happen, and I think it is an easy way to say it. It's contagious because I think when people see a leader getting things done, they want to pitch in. They want it just rubs off on them. So whatever it is, it happens, and I'm seeing it, and we couldn't be more fortunate to have you on the team as the leader, Emilee. The other night, you make me think about that, and I want to give a shout-out to Christina Inge, who did speak. We were at Northeastern the other night, and that was an AMA Boston event, and she revealed her research, a study she conducted on AI and how many people are using it and what they're using it for and how it's going to affect marketing, and I thought it was fascinating. And
Fascinating.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so I'll segue from that to a marketing question, and that's what. So I love marketing. I've been in marketing for over 40 years, 35 years for the most part in the corporate world, and the last 6, 7, 8 approximately years consulting and contracting and teaching and being AMA Boston president. You are fairly recent into the industry, out of school, but I sense you have a passion for marketing, and you're going to be president of AMA, American Marketing Association Boston, AMA Boston. What do you like best about marketing? What draws you, attracts you, makes you want to have a career in marketing?
It would be sad if I didn't like marketing, right, Bob?
Well, I was asking that question, I was saying, wait a minute, she better like marketing.
Yeah, I better, right? They throw me off the board, but
marketing, the definition of marketing is evolving,
right,
too, a
right.
bit.
And I think that's, if you asked me 20 years ago, it'd probably be email marketing or the start of email marketing and what's exciting. But I grew up in the age of where social media marketing was becoming big, and now it is grand to the extent, and you are a great example of adapting to the marketing trends.
Thank you for saying that, yes.
Which I'm really impressed with. I think you're the only person that I know that's so consistent of your age. And
day in and day out.
Which is awesome.
Yeah.
It's so cool. But anyways, for my favorite field of marketing, it's definitely the storytelling, and that's, for me, videos or even graphics, I'd say, but I'm such a sucker for a good TikTok or an Instagram reel or a YouTube short. Those are, I think, when I think of marketing, I think of a lot of things. I think of sales. I think of, email marketing campaigns, all of that stuff, SEO, websites, things like that. But I think the best part of marketing, which if there was only one part I could choose for the rest of my life from working in, it would be in video marketing, because I think that's where you can tell the greatest stories. You can tell a brand's perspective. You can tell someone's perspective, an influencer's perspective. And I think people's or brand stories are most powerful when you can convey that versus, just a... maybe just a graphic or something.
Totally agree. I say to people, I do a lot of videos, almost 1,000 now on YouTube.
Congrats.
Yeah, thank you. For what it's worth. Thank you. The congrats is worth a lot. I meant the 1,000 videos.
I've tried posting one and I'm done.
It's just what I do almost daily. But what I was going to say, I tell people that video obviously is the next best thing to be in there, and it makes you, trust is rare these days, and you can build trust using video. You can have people get to know you. The more they get to know you, like you and respect you and do business with you if that opportunity arises. What about, so you touched on social, and I've touched on how many years I've been in business. I've seen tons of changes in marketing. It's not easy to predict. We were talking about this the other night with Christina at Northeastern, talking about AI. But are there any specific, how do you see marketing changing? You will see and live through and maybe usher in yourself, I'm sure you will, Emilee, the changes that some of us can only imagine right now in the marketing industry, in the business industry. What's on the horizon?
Oh, gosh. It's a good question. I think, as Christina put it, we can only predict so much, but I don't think we can predict what the next 10 years will look like entirely. AI is obviously going to be the big thing. I'm in AI. A lot of our members are in AI. And I agree in the point of, yes, a lot of the content will be generated by AI. A lot of the videos will be generated by AI. But I think there's going to be a shift to that where it's helpful, where, as Christina put it the other night, where if you're trying to write a blog post, you have something in mind, you're writing it down, but you just need to get it to the next step. You're saving some time, you're saving some of the frustration or writer's block. So it helps, maybe ChatGPT helps you get to the finish line by adding some more inspirations and adding, finishing that blog post, for example. Where I think things may change is, I think authenticity may be an interesting factor in social media, where I think eventually brands may steer away from using purely AI content, but saving that time to be able to use it as a tool for their jobs and for their work, but not entirely taking it over. So I'm not quite sure what the future will look like entirely, but I think that's how AI will assist in it. But who knows? Maybe influencers will be the next big thing. Maybe some other social media channel or tool will be the next big thing, and I can't predict which one will be which.
No, I don't think anyone can. It's not an easy question to answer definitively with regard to AI. And a lot of what we talked about the other night was, you can use ChatGPT or generative AI in general to write, but I said, hey, I've been writing my blog for 20 years, and I honestly, as much as I embrace technology, I wouldn't use AI not at all to write my blog posts because I'm the brand, and brand's all about trust, and I've also been writing my whole career. But I do, with my videos, use some AI tools, some apps, and I do so many videos. Sometimes I go into ChatGPT and I put in an idea and see what it comes out with, or I ask it for an idea, and then I do the riff on that, and obviously my words with me on camera, but it can be a great prompt.
Right. And if you're using AI to create your captions, for example, that makes it easier. It makes your job so much easier.
Yes.
Or if you're like, I need to, cut a clip right in the middle, and you ask AI to do it, and it does it. That's a beautiful tool to use.
You just mentioned something I am noticing, because again, I'm not a videographer per se, but I do a ton of videos, and I am now discovering more and more tools that say you could record a 60-second video, or hey, 60 seconds, I meant 60-minute or 60-minute podcast, and put it into some AI tool, and it can break it up into 20 chunks for you in minutes, maybe seconds, when it would normally take us hours. Yeah, and me, I might not even know how to do it. So obviously, there's many advantages. Where I think the big gray area, and I would go so far as say danger zone, is we are talking about trust and authenticity and transparency and storytelling, and I wouldn't want to see people relying on automation and machines to do that part of it, because that, I think, is what can replace the human part of who we are as communicators and marketers.
Right. No, I agree on that, and I think it's going to be interesting. There's probably going to be a lot of regulation, I assume, and governmental policies coming in place in the future. So that should be interesting.
Emilee, what about, where do you go for, so I learn from you, anyone who's met you learns a lot from you. You're a consultant, you're a leader on the AMA Boston board. So people are learning from you, but frankly, we all have to learn and be inspired from others. And I'm curious who perhaps have been your mentors, or who are your mentors, or role models, or, and this could be personally, professionally.
So other than you, Bob, right?
You are too kind. You don't have to mentor. Say that. I set her up for that really well, didn't I?
He did.
So,
yeah.
Come on.
Well, you are definitely one, Bob. I do look at you as a marketing leader, and especially one that's able to do it so consistently. I admire that. When I was growing up, I had a coach that really taught about consistency and said, the one thing you should always look for people that you want in your life is to be a consistent person. And you're definitely one of them. So I do appreciate that.
That is awesome. And listeners can't see the tear in my eye. Not quite.
Not quite.
But I am getting emotional. It's really nice of you to say, because I agree with you, and especially as I get older. Consistency is key.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I'll throw a few people in my professional life. Deb Harsh is a mentor of mine since Clark. I did an entrepreneurial Clark Tank essentially back in my day, and she was my mentor, and she really kicked my butt, but in such a good way. And she's now one of my closest mentors, and truly someone that continuously looks after me and gives me good advice. And she's actually in the marketing space, so that's funny. But she also is a woman in business, and I think that's so important. She, during her time, she's an older woman, so she really went through the ringer. She, I think, was one of those women that broke the glass ceiling, essentially.
Good for her.
And
Good for her.
She's told me so many stories, and she's really a great inspiration. So I'll have to send her this podcast afterwards.
Yes.
And then I'll add a few others. I just had John Weaver, who was another mentor back in college, and he is the CEO at MBI, and he's a great mentor. We did WSGA together, where he was our mentor advisor, and he was a big person to advocate for organization, and so that I think that's where I get a lot of my organizational thought processes, where he said, due to 2 to 3 things that are achievable in this year. You're not going to swallow the ocean. Make sure they're achievable, and really follow through with that. So that was a huge help. And then, personally, I do look at my friends as inspirations. One of my best friends just worked on the largest opioid research project in Boston, which was amazing.
Wow.
It was, I think, almost 5 years long. So
that's impressive.
One of the largest grants that the NIH gave. So she's definitely a huge inspiration.
Impressive and much needed.
Right. I do look at my friends, and they are doing incredibly impactful things. So she's one. I have another friend that just completed her PhD in bioinformatics, and that's wild. Smart people, right?
I don't think I even know what that is.
I know, right? I had to look it up a few times when she told me. I have friends that...
I'm in marketing.
Right.
I'm in bioinformatics.
Yep.
Marketing, people get. Bioinformatics,
they're like...
that is very impressive.
Yeah.
Good for her.
So,
wow.
lots of cool friends. I had a friend that just graduated med school, and yeah, everyone's doing something impactful, and I think those are some of my biggest inspirations.
Because you're wicked smart. You attract wicked smart people around you. Wow.
Thank you.
That's amazing. So a shift, if you will.
Yes.
We mentioned social media, and you alluded to how much I use it. Some may say almost too much. I'm online from the moment I wake up to the moment I go to sleep, and sometimes I fall asleep looking at my phone. Not unlike the younger generation. But as a baby boomer, that's probably one of my superpowers, which we're going to get to in a minute, about you. But social media, I see you on X a little bit. I see you on LinkedIn a lot. But I'm curious what your favorite channels, platforms to use on social media. What do you think about it? Anything you want to say about social media? But I'd love to hear your usage as well.
Don't hate me, Bob, but I don't love social media, and I think that's okay.
It is okay.
And I think it's because I grew up with it, getting a Facebook page when I was, I forget how old I was, but I'm starting to realize the effects of it, and I put it in the perspective of this doesn't happen to everyone, but I try to limit myself on social media, so I'm not scrolling, I'm not, diving into the lives of, people I knew, in high school or something, and people getting engaged and married and having kids. And I think you can get lost in the whole picturesque life that people paint on social media. So I've actually been trying to, go back a little bit, stop using social media as frequently. But that doesn't mean I don't think it's a really powerful tool. But I use LinkedIn, I use Twitter, Instagram. And you know this too. I don't post a lot, and when I do, it's every few months, if not 2 to 3 times a year, and that's okay because for me, I'm a pretty private person, and I don't love sharing my life, and I think that's okay too. But I really respect people like you that are able to do that, and other influencers or social media personnels that can do it and make us laugh, and I think that's something that I really like about social media is that you have your favorite YouTubers or Instagrammers or TikTokers that can truly make you laugh and have fun and really forget about the day. And every so often, I'll even say it when I go on, Instagram Reels or TikTok or something, just scrolling through makes me laugh because people are hilarious. And that's where I find the joy of social media. Really, people are the most creative and funny people. I was just watching a TikTok where they were going through like the American Girl.
Wait a minute, you just said you don't do that.
Okay, I know, right? And then
I'm kidding.
I'm limiting myself, Bob. I
but
told
when
myself,
you do
when
that.
I do, it's a great time.
There's a tear in my eye. It's from laughing.
And someone just did a whole thing about the American Girl dolls, and I thought it was just so funny. So, yeah, people are funny.
Well,
people are hilarious.
I respect people like you who are setting limits on themselves because here I am saying it's my superpower, but it also could be my super weakness because I do get sucked into it, if you will. But I make a living doing it and teaching
that's the difference, yeah.
But you're not alone, Emilee. Ironically, I have students who take my classes in social media, but will say what you said, that they don't like it and they're private.
Right.
And I say, well, but this is a social media class.
Right.
This is what we're going to do for the next 6 weeks or the next 12 weeks. No, I totally respect what you're saying. And I also think your generation is saying you're not alone in saying what you're saying. I, as a baby boomer, thought it's so important, but to adapt and adopt, to adopt the social media channels early on. But I also had a passion for it early on.
Right.
I got a master's degree in television. I've always liked media, mass communications, and to me, when social media came around, I said, "Wow, this is like amazing."
And it's your job, Bob. You are the face of your brand as well, and your personal brand, and that's part of you is social media and being really good at it. And I love that about you. It shows who you are and what you do, and that you're really good at it.
Well, I'm envious of you that you can set limits on yourself and that you are, I'm understanding, and I tell people this when I do this podcast and interview people, I learn so much more about them than I knew before, and I thought I knew you well, but I'm understanding why. I mean, you are so organized and focused, and you are able to set aside certain things in order to be that focus and get things done. And I'll admit, I am not all the time. I let in everything. I like to let in everything. Yeah. It's just the way I am. An idea person, but I think I'm not this idea fairy because I have always had to get things done. Yeah. I'm a little of both, but you're a lot of getting the things done, and that's an admirable trait. But I'm also seeing your secret now. So I'm going to learn
distractions, or different things.
I'm constantly learning. We learn from other people, and it's so important. So I want to go into. I asked you to predict, if you could, no one can, the future of social media, but this might be an easier question, and that's your career, your life. And I'm curious, what are your goals and your aspirations? Yeah. We talked about a year ago, and I asked you what your goals were at AMA Boston, and that's when you got elected as president-elect, and you'll be president, so you can foresee that far into the future with AMA Boston. But what about your career? I mean, what are your plans? What are your goals? How can you envision all of that? Some of that?
Yes, I have a pretty, I think, concrete goal of the future. How I get there is a different story, but I do see myself having my own company eventually, or being on an executive team in some ways. So definitely being at the top of the chain. In any point, I think running my own company, whether it be a CPG brand, a consulting firm, whatever it may be, I think that's something that's definitely on top of my mind in the next 10 years. But who knows? As we said, Bob, anything can happen in the next 10 years. I could find a new love and passion, something else, or some other job opportunity could, just walk by, and I say that's amazing, that's great. Who knows? I want to own a soccer team eventually, or something, something of that nature. There's so many things that could happen, and what I can predict in the next few years is that I'm really enjoying the job I'm at right now, and just really wanting to get good at it and be a good lead in that organization, and we'll see where it goes.
What is it exactly that you're doing is it Valere?
Valere, yeah. Service delivery lead, which sounds just like anything. It's a lot of leading enterprise software clients, so from the sales process, the business development, marketing, and being part of those delivery parts as well, so discovery. But it's run by two people that I know pretty well, and we can see the future of it. We can go in different directions, and so I definitely see myself in that role, expanding to different opportunities, whatever it may be, but unsure right now.
What I can say about you very confidently, I do a lot of things, but I do not gamble or bet. And I know I think it's legal right now in Massachusetts. Yeah. I don't do any of that, but it looks all fun. But if I could bet on you, Emilee, I would bet the house on you. Never mind president of AMA Boston. You'll be president of whatever type of company you want to be president of.
Thank you.
And maybe multiple times over. Not even a question.
Thank you. You know what I'll say, Bob? In 20 years, I'm going to have a cat sanctuary.
You like cats?
I love cats. Yeah. So I'll tell you that. 20 years, I know I'll.
That is wicked cool. I see your cat on Zoom.
Zoom all the time. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, Milo the cat, and you're going to take care of Milo, and in the future, other cats.
Yeah, dozens, hundreds, maybe thousands of other cats. Yeah. That is awesome to hear. I like cats too. We have a dog, not a cat, but I grew up with cats, and a couple. And cats are nice. They're relaxing.
They are relaxing. Yeah. Milo, maybe not so much, but our other cats were relaxing. Milo's a little wild.
Well, they have personalities, and they're all a little different. Yeah,
yeah.
That's what I like about cats. Yeah,
right. We dog sat a friend's dog last year, and I never had a dog growing up, but taking him out every 2 to 3 hours was definitely a lifestyle
it's
change.
A lot of work.
It is. Yeah.
It's like having it's for us another child, or
right.
For anybody, like having a child in the family. Yeah. You've mentioned soccer a few times before we end, and we're going to wrap up in just a few minutes.
Cool.
We're close to almost 50 minutes now, and my guess is we'll go over 50 minutes, which is a great long conversation. We can go on and on.
Okay.
But let me ask about women's soccer, because you've alluded to it. You've talked about it. You just said something about owning a team. I think in your bio it said you were an owner. I don't understand how you can be an owner already.
It's a USL, which is the secondary league in the United States. So think of it like kind of the minor leagues, or a little bit.
Yeah.
And there's an investment platform where you could invest in a team, and so wasn't a large amount of money, but you could still, whatever amount you were considered a community investor. So nothing in terms of the actual NWSL, which is the Premier League essentially, but I still enjoy it.
Is it stock? Do you get return on that investment, or are you just considered
considered an owner? I think
considered an owner.
I think the goal is to get stock eventually, but it's so early on.
Could we do that with AMA Boston?
I know.
Owners. I guess it's their membership fees.
Yeah, I was about to say. I think.
But maybe if we call them owners, they'd feel
more
important and pay more to be members.
There's a few revenue generating ideas I have for AMA Boston.
See,
that's a future conversation.
I'm telling you.
But you know what? We had a speaker for my class the other week. It's really interesting. You can invest in Broadway shows.
I did not know that.
Which I didn't really know either up until our presentation last week by Eric Butler. It was incredible.
It's like those fundraising platforms.
Right. I would say this one's a little more formal. They have an actual firm.
Wow.
But it was super interesting. He's invested in, what's the Moulin Rouge?
Yeah.
American in Paris.
Uh-huh.
And it's super, super interesting. So things like that, eventually when I get to that point with money and feeling stable, that's something I definitely want to get into, whether it be women's soccer or any other kind of women's sports league, as well as plays and musicals. And so
you were going to make so many things happen, Emilee.
Thank
you,
Your Bob.
Life is going to be exciting, and I want to be along for the ride. Okay,
thank you.
Because
we'll go to a soccer game then.
That would be fun. I love sports. It's one of the sports I don't know all that much about, but I grew up playing sports. Remember, I'm so old. When I was a kid, soccer wasn't a big deal. I mean, I don't think it
isn't a big deal.
What's that?
It's still not as big in the United States, but it's getting better. Yeah.
Yeah, it's making its mark slowly but surely.
Yeah.
But I mean, I think when I was in high school, it might have been just starting up as a high school sport. Yeah.
What's your favorite sport?
Thank you. She's turning the tables on me, folks.
I'm interested.
Well, I football, I think, to watch.
Yeah.
Not soccer, football. Football.
American football.
To watch. That's the one sport I would sit down and watch a game from beginning to end now. I mean, I grew up loving all of them. The Red Sox are starting up. I think today they're opening against Seattle. Baseball I love, but I've just watched so many games and so much sports in my lifetime. I don't have the time for it or the patience for it. Especially baseball. It's such a long, slow game.
I love baseball.
Yeah.
It is long to watch on TV. I love watching it at Fenway and in person, but
absolutely.
I agree.
It's a great take. It's a great thing.
Long to watch on TV.
Relaxing and sit back and enjoy.
Yeah.
So football to watch. I played baseball when I was young. I mean, like Little League baseball and junior high football, freshman football, JV basketball. But then I went into running. You know that.
Yeah.
And I'm still running to this day. And
Boston Marathon,
Yeah,
2 weeks.
Boston Marathon, yeah, 2.5 weeks from now. Is there been, so we're going to wind down, what about highlights of your career? Do you want to, I mean, we've heard everything you've said to me has been a highlight. Is there anything especially significant that has stood out, that has been a prompt for you, to a spark, ignited you to do even bigger things that you're proud of, that you want to share?
I would say probably one of the biggest career highlights is being a professor at Clark. And I'm looking back, I think my first class was probably that career highlight, because I had so many great students that were so passionate, and a lot of them are continuing their businesses and they are successful. And I think I talked about a few students back in the Talk and Marketing episode that I was on, but I have students that are still running their businesses. I have students that are being featured by Clark, being featured in other places for their artwork, and that's really gratifying, because I had a student who was just starting his business. I don't think he was really sure of exactly what it'd be, and now I received like an article from the head of our entrepreneurship program a few weeks ago, where Clark featured his business and with his business partner, and that was just really gratifying to see that some of the students have really taken off since the class, and that's just truly the most rewarding and fulfilling experiences.
What advice do you give students, young people, younger than you? You are a young person, certainly compared to me.
Or I get mistaken as a student sometimes.
Well, you're only so many years out of school and teaching already. Again, that's an example of how far you're going to be going in your career, Emilee. But seriously, what advice do you give them, and in terms of what should they do if they want to get into marketing right out of college and be the rock star you are already? What advice would you give them?
I usually advise students, if we're using marketing as an example, to gain as much experience as possible. So taking those internships, trying different things, and then deciding what they want to do after college through those experiences. I'm a big proponent of, I never like saying take an unpaid internship or doing pro bono work, but if you're just starting off and having experience, helping that small business down the street with their marketing, helping a client, and really gaining that repository of clients and experiences, and I think that's really helpful, and it helps determine what students may want to do afterwards. So if you didn't like running that email campaign, maybe email marketing's not for you. But if you love making those videos and those graphics, and you love Canva, maybe social media marketing is for you. So just really encourage students to try as much as possible, because as you know, Bob, when you get to your career, you have less opportunity to dip into different things and to try different things. So I do encourage them to try as much as possible.
I agree. The early stages are so important. Those decisions you make then, those jobs you take then, can pave the way for your career the rest of the way, and you want it to be ideally running start. I do say, and I think you're saying the same thing. Yeah, experiment early on, because the further into it you get, into life itself, you don't necessarily have as much flexibility, as much latitude.
Right.
So great advice. Emilee, one last question, and it's really an easy one. I hope people who listen to this podcast connect with you on LinkedIn, reach out to you, and become professional acquaintances, if not friends with you. And so how can they reach you? What's the best way to reach you? And feel free in giving away that information to say anything else that you'd want to say as we wind down.
Yeah, people can find me on LinkedIn. It's just my first name, last name, which you'll have in the show notes anyways. My name's a little hard to spell, both my first and last name. So connect with me on LinkedIn. On Twitter, it's still first name _ last name, I think. I would say those are the two platforms. But yeah, Bob, I had a great time. This was a great podcast episode, and I really appreciate what you've done to help mentor me into AMA and into this role and becoming president as your successor. And I just really appreciate all that you've done for the organization and all that you do for everyone else involved. So thank you, Bob.
Thank you, Emilee. And the feeling is mutual, and I've told you, I'll tell you now on the record behind the microphone, how fortunate I felt when I first met you and how very quickly I said to myself, there's hopefully our next president, because I see, people taught me this early on in my career. I was a manager at many jobs and in leadership positions in numerous times during the course of my career, and hopefully that trend, that path will continue. But they said you always want to be looking for your successor. You always want to be spreading, like we've talked about, if not directly, indirectly, spreading your vision to others so that you can all carry that vision as a team and then pass that baton to somebody else or numerous other people. And so it makes me proud to know you and happy to know that you're going to be president of AMA Boston.
Thank you, Bob.
Yeah. So, folks, thanks for listening. And now you know an awful lot about Emilee Cocuzzo, President-elect of AMA Boston, soon to be president as of July 1, 2024. And I've learned a few more things about you, Emilee. This has been a very enjoyable conversation. And thanks, everybody, for listening to Bob Cargill's Marketing Show. This has been episode 185. And I appreciate my listeners. I appreciate the support. And today, most importantly, I want to say I appreciate you, Emilee Cocuzzo. Thanks, Emilee. Thanks, everybody. And I will talk to you again soon. Thanks. Bye-bye.